So you're still doing $100 gigs. Well, that's probably why you're a broke musician. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Music Space, where we help working musicians just like you learn how to quickly and easily make a living with their craft. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. And in this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons you should stop doing $100 gigs today. So let's jump right into it. So what is a $100 gig? Well, simply, it's a gig that you do where you only get paid $100. But more specifically, it's a metaphor for gigs and work that you take that undermine your value. So it usually goes something like this. You get a call for a gig, say in 2 weeks from now, and you agree to do it. The people who call you want to do at least one rehearsal the week of the gig, but they haven't gotten the whole band or all of the personnel that's going to be in the band secured yet. So you don't get a set list of the gig, of the music that's being performed, until maybe 2 to 3 days before the rehearsal, because that's when the entire personnel of the band got solidified. Now, on a set list of, say, 30 songs, you know probably about 10 or 12 of them, and you're probably at least familiar, or you've heard at least 3 or 4 others on the set list just because you've been playing so long. So now you're in the position where you have to practice and shed, on average about 20 songs or so, where you really have to kind of get them down and know it. And on average, it takes probably about 20 minutes or so to be able to shed a song completely, to be able to at least get through it. Now, 20 minutes per song for an average of about 20 songs equals about 6.5 hours of time. But let's just round it down to 6 hours. Now, let's add 2 more hours for the rehearsal that you're going to have to do with the band. And now you're at about 8 hours. Also, let's add the gig time from, say, 9 to 1 on a Friday night, which is a standard time, so 4-hour gig. Now you're at about 12 hours. Now, if you add the drive time in there, and let's just say you're lucky enough to live in a city where the average drive times are about 15 minutes. So 15 minutes to rehearsal, 15 minutes from rehearsal, 15 minutes to the gig, 15 minutes from the gig, and you're at about another hour of drive time. So now we're at 13 hours. Now, at the end of this gig, you get handed a fresh $100 bill, or 520s, however they give it to you. Do you know that you just work for slightly more than minimum wage? Now, when you put it in that context, it sounds kind of crazy, right? You just spent 13 hours of time for $100. So how do you feel about that? Now let's get into the 5 reasons you should stop doing gigs like that, like literally today. But before we jump into it, I want to let you know about my free ebook that you can download right now. This ebook will give you 10 tips that you can start using literally today to help yourself make more money as a musician. So I'll leave a link to it in the description below. And also, while you're at it, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded. And be sure to subscribe to the channel as well. All right, so reason number 1 you should stop doing gigs that undermine your value today is called the 60% delivery phenomenon. Now, basically what this means is that when your value is undermined, it makes you not do your best. When you accept gigs or work that you don't feel is worthy of your time and worthy of your value, it starts to show in your response. You don't take the music seriously, you're more inclined to show up late, and you're not willing to go that extra mile that it likely takes a lot of times to be successful at anything. And when it comes down to it, you're only putting in about 60% or so of work, and that sort of undermines your value to yourself. Now, reason number 2 you should stop doing gigs and work that undermine your value today is because of market depreciation. And what that means is by doing gigs that undermine your value and doing it for cheap, you sort of set the market value for yourself and for other musicians as well. When you settle for less, when you start to settle for things that undermine your value, there is a continued expectation for you to continue settling for that. So it makes it hard for you to, drive your price up and ask for raises and stuff like that. And then also it makes it really difficult for other musicians who may come after you or behind you or beside you to ask for certain prices or high end prices as well, because the expectation is for them to pay out what they've paid, you for settling for this gig. So for example, you are asked to do this big show and the pay is only, $100, and then another band comes behind you 3 months later or the next year for the same event, and then they ask for, $500 per person in the band. Well, these people are looking like, well, wow, last year we only paid $100 to, such and such band. So you see how that works? Now, reason number 3, you should stop doing $100 gigs and gigs that undermine your value is that it determines your value to others. Now, I can't stress this enough. Your price that you charge for your work is a huge determining factor of how valuable people see you. So, for example, just think about Apple products, say a MacBook or iPad or Apple Watch or something like that. Now, is an iPad really that much better or have more specs or something than, say, a Galaxy tablet? Is a MacBook really that much better than, say, a laptop with similar specs? Does the Apple Watch really do that much more than a Galaxy Watch? The answer to these are a resounding no. There's not that much difference between these products. Yet Apple products are perceived as more valuable. Why? Because they charge higher prices. And we tend to see things that have higher prices as more valuable. So your price determines your perceived value to other people. Now, reason number 4, you should stop doing these type of gigs and work is because of compliance and complacency. So what I mean by that is over time, you start to see these things as it's just the way it is, and this is just how things work. This is just how much musicians get paid and stuff like that. And you tend to become accepting of it. You'll really just start going along with whatever the status quo is, and you'll be less willing to challenge it. And then before you know it, you will have been playing 10, 15, 20 years, still making the same type of money that you were making when you first started in the first 2 to 3 years of playing. So doing this type of work consistently really makes you start to become compliant and complacent. Now, reason number 5, you should stop doing $100 gigs and gigs that undermine your value is that you yourself start to feel less valuable. Now, this is true for virtually anything that you do where you don't feel valued or appreciated. But I know you can relate to stories like this. Say a church musician, you yourself may be a church musician, where you show up consistently on time, you do your job fairly well, you do what you're supposed to do. Yet when it comes time for, raises and appreciations and things like that, you're constantly and consistently overlooked. You're always asked to do more, show up earlier, stay later, play for this event, play for that event, put this program together, play for these people, so forth and so on, etc., etc. But you're rarely, if ever, asked or approached with the, hey, just want to say thanks, here's a token of my appreciation type of stuff. And over time, this stuff starts to make you feel less valuable and less appreciated. And it begins this sort of circle of destruction thing where you don't feel valued or appreciated, so you start doing less. Well, by doing less, you're less valued and appreciated. So it's kind of this thing that feeds itself, and then you eventually end up just being this broke musician. So these are the 5 reasons you should stop doing gigs and work that undermine your value and stop doing them today.